Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Dirshu Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding a Mishnah Berurah Chelik Hey. Today, in Yirtzeh Hashem, we will be learning Daf Kuf Chav Ches Amid Beis. We are continuing to learn Hilchos Yom Tov. We are in Siman Taf Kuf Yud Aleph, and we're holding in the middle of Sif Beis. I'm going to start today on Kuf Chav Ches Amid Aleph, and I'm going to read from the beginning of Sif Beis. I'm not going to go over all of the Mishnah Berurah again in Sif Beis, but for the sake of continuity, I'm going to read from the beginning of Sif Beis and just speak out the salient points that are necessary for the understanding of what the Shulchan Aruch says. So the Mechaber says in Sif Beis, Mutar lahachem b'Yom Tov mayim l'rchaitz yadav. We said that you are allowed to heat up, according to the Mechaber, you're allowed to heat up on Yom Tov water for the washing of your hands. And we said in the Mishnah Berurah that although the Mechaber says yadav, your hands, it really means panav, yadav, v'raglav. You're allowed to heat up water to wash your face, your hands, and your feet. And the reason for this heter is because the washing of the hands and the face and the feet is something that's considered a davar hashav l'chal nefesh. That's something which is considered a hanas haguf, that the vast majority of people, they all consider that to be a requirement, to be a necessity, and therefore this is something which is mutar on Yom Tov, either because it's considered oichel nefesh, because it's a hanoas haguf, or because of the concept of mitoich shehutra havar l'tzarich oichel nefesh, hutra gamkein shaloi l'tzarich oichel nefesh, as long as it's a tzarich Yom Tov and it's a davar hashav l'chol nefesh. Continues the Mechaber, avaloi kol gufay. However, you are not allowed to heat up water on Yom Tov in order to wash your entire body. And the reason for that is because that is not considered a davar hashav l'chol nefesh. Not everybody feels that they have to wash their entire body every day. Since it's not a davar hashav l'chol nefesh, it's not mutar on Yom Tov. And the Mechaber says this is true afilu eina roichetzai b'basachas, even if you were not going to wash your entire body at one shot, even if you wanted to go ahead and wash your body aver, one limb at a time, and still it's not mutter to warm up water for that purpose on Yom Tov. And the reason the Mechaber mentions this is because we're going to see later on, the Mechaber is going to say that if you have water that was heated up before Yom Tov, then you're allowed to wash your entire body on Yom Tov using that water if you do it aver, if you do it one limb at a time. But over here, the Mechaber is talking about heating up water on Yom Tov to wash your entire body. That's not mutter at all on Yom Tov, even if you're going to wash aver. So says the Mechaber. Now the Ramah said, Hagah, aval mutter l'rchaitz tinoik. However, you are allowed to wash a baby. If you happen to have water that was heated up by a yid on Yom Tov, either because he transgressed this prohibition and he heated up water even though it was forbidden to do so, he heated up water to wash the baby, so now you have the water, or you have water that a yid heated up because he heated it up for a different reason. He heated it up for a permissible reason. He wanted to make a samovar full of hot water to make coffee. Or he heated up a lot of water for panav yadav v'raglav. So it was mutter for him to heat up the water. So if you have water that a yid heated up on Yom Tov, you're allowed to wash a baby, even kol gufay, his entire body, you're allowed to wash him on Yom Tov. And the Mishnah Berurah explained that we have a kula by a baby because hainu revise. This is what the baby is used to. It's kind of, in a sense, kind of like a davar hashav l'chal nefesh type of inyan. In other words, the baby, it's the custom. It's the normal thing for a little baby to bathe the baby every day. So if you have the water already heated up, you could use it to wash the baby's entire body. Aval, the Ramah continues, asar lechamim litzarchai, but you are not allowed to heat up water to wash the baby's entire body. Afilu al yedei eina Yehudi, even through the agency of a non-Jew. And the Mishnah Berurah explained, because according to many, this is an Issa Daraisa, because we said that washing the entire body is not a davar hashav l'chol nefesh. If it's not a davar hashav l'chol nefesh, then it's an Issa Daraisa to warm up the water for a davar she'eino shava l'chol nefesh on Yom Tov. And if it's an issa d'oraisa, certainly we can't be matter you to do this. And he said, even according to those who hold that it's only an issa d'Rabbanan, still, okay, it's an issa d'Rabbanan, and now you're going to do it through the agency of a non-Jew, so it's just a shvus to shvus, but it's not a shvus to shvus b'baka mitzvah, so you can't be mattered. The Mishnah Berurah does throw out at the end of Ice Cut and Yud Gimel, he says, Miyu b'makim chayli k'tzas yesh lahatir. When you're dealing with somebody who's a chayli k'tzas, when you're dealing with somebody who's somewhat ill, so then you could be matter through the agency of a non-Jew to have water heated up for rechitzas kol gufa. Okay, now we pick up where we had left off, which is, by me, it's the second line from the bottom, 2 words off the end in the Ramah here. Avol, however, says the Ramah, kishet tzarech lahem levasha loy lahadiach. If a yid has need to heat up water for cooking purposes, he wants to make a big pot of macaroni, tzarech echel nefesh on Yom Tov, oy lahadiach, or he needs it to wash kelim that he needs for Yom Tov, then mutter laharbois b'shviloi, then you're allowed to add water in order to wash the tinoik. Says the Mishnah Berurah cut yadalid, mutter laharbois b'shviloi, kedei sheyishar gam lekatan l'rechitza. If you're heating up water for cooking purposes or for washing purposes for a permissible reason, you could add water and you could cook up a larger pot of water so that you should be able to give the baby a bath. As long as you don't add water to the pot once you already put the pot onto the fire. So you can't go and put up a pot of hot water for tea, put it on the fire, and then say, oh, let me add on water so I'll be able to bathe the baby. Because now it's not tircha achas. Now you're not doing it in one shot. What's permissible is, like we said earlier, if you're cooking up water for one reason, so as long as you're doing tircha achas, you could fill up the pot all the way, and you can have extra water for bathing the baby. You're allowed to take a big pot initially. Now, since we're talking about bathing a baby, the Chavetz Chaim points out another potential problem with bathing a baby. And that is that apparently in those days, it was the custom to take some kind of a folded up cloth and use it as a seat for the baby to sit on in the bathtub. So you had some kind of areva, you had some kind of large keli that you used for the bathtub. And the skin of the baby is sensitive. We don't want the baby to get scratched. So you take a big shmata, you fold it up, and you let the baby sit on it. So that, he says, is a problem. Over here, you're now risking the problem of kibbutz, of laundering on Yom Tov. The shoyra is sambamayim, because you're soaking a cloth in water. And that's always a problem of kibbutz. Valkain, and therefore, says the Chavetz Chaim, yesh lizar al kalpanim, you should at least take care, sheyiyu avindalin, those are these towels, that this towel that you're using as a cushion should be nikim. It should be clean. Mechubasim mikvar, something that was already washed. If it's not something that was freshly laundered, so you have a problem by soaking it now, you have a problem of kibbutz, then you cannot be matir it unless you do it through the agency of a non-Jew. And even if they are clean and freshly laundered, still the Chavetz Chaim says, it still would be preferable to have a non-Jew place it in the water. The Chavetz Chaim points out that this was all explained previously in Hilchos Shabbos and Siman Shin Beis, Be'Biur Halacha Ayin Sham. Okay. Now let's go back to Kuf Chav Ches Amud Aleph and continue the Ramah. On the bottom line, the Ramah says, V'din l'chamei teveria. As far as using natural hot springs for bathing purposes, Kamay b'Shabbos, the halacha on Yom Tov would be the same as the halacha on Shabbos. K'di'isa Siman Shin Chavav, like we learned in Siman Shin Chavav, Sifim, Aleph, and Beis. And for those that are interested, you can take a look over there in Siman Shin Chavav. Continues the Mechaber. Now we're going to go on. So far, we've discussed the halacha of heating up the water for the bathing purposes on Yom Tov. Now, how about if you already had water that was heated up on Erev Yom Tov? Says the Mechaber, Avol b'mayim shehu chamu me Erev Yom Tov. If you have water that was already heated up on Erev Yom Tov, mutter lirchaitz kol gufay afilu ke'echad. Then the sheet of the mechaber is, if you have water that was heated up on Erev Yom Tov, and now you want to bathe in it on Yom Tov, the mechaber says that's mutter even rechitzas kol gufay. You want to take a nice bath, a nice hot bath in water that was heated up on Erev Yom Tov. According to the mechaber, that's mutter. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cotton tesvav, may Erev Yom Tov mutter, after b'Shabbos aser af aver, even though on Shabbos, if you had water that was heated up on Erev Shabbos, and you want to take a hot bath on Shabbos, that's aser on Shabbos af aver. Even not to go sit in the bath, even if you want to wash one limb at a time, that's aser on Shabbos. The chol shekain kol gufay ke'echad, certainly on Shabbos it would be aser to wash your entire body at one time. Kedi isa b'simin shin chavav, like we learned in simin shin chavav sif aleph. That's also because of the gzeras habalonin. We asered, the Chazal forbade rechitza of any kind on Shabbos because they were afraid of the balonim, the professional, the people who had the bathhouses. They would go ahead and they would heat up water be'isr on Shabbos, and then they would lie and they would say, nah, we heated it up before Shabbos. So the Chazal asered bathing in hot water on Shabbos, even if it was heated up on Erev Shabbos because of Gzeres Abalonin. But Yom Tov killed Tvei. But on Yom Tov, it's more kuladik. And on Yom Tov, according to the Mechaber, if you have water that was heated up before Yom Tov, you're allowed to bathe even kol gufay on Yom Tov. Now, the Mechaber gives over here, according to his shita, a very important caveat. Let's go back to the Mechaber on the second line, the middle of the line. The Mechaber says, Miu, however, dafka chutz lamerchatz. This is only mutter to bathe in the hot water that was heated up on Erev Yom Tov. That's only mutter if you're doing it chutz lamerchatz, if you're doing it outside of the bathhouse. Aval bemerchatz, but to do it in a bathhouse, that's osir. Explains the Chavetz Chaim, aval bemerchatz, he's cutting to Zayin, hainu afilu babayas achitzayin shel merchatz, even in the outer chamber of the bathhouse, not the room where they actually took the baths, even in the outer chamber of the bathhouse, you're also not allowed to bathe in water that was heated up even on Erev Yom Tov. Also, lirchaitz b'chavin, you're not allowed to bathe in hot water. In the outer chamber of the bathhouse, which has a more kula dikadin, you're allowed to use hot water to rinse your body, but you're not allowed to bathe in it. And the Mechaber said that in the merchatz itself, also. And so even on Yom Tov, you have water that was heated up on Erev Yom Tov, you're not allowed to bathe your whole body in that water in the merchatz. Osir, says the Mishnah Berurah cut Yud Zayin. The Osir chachamim rechitza b'merchatz, because the Chazal forbade bathing in a bathhouse, mishum gzeras habalonin, again because of the gzera of the people, the workers of the bathhouse, shahayu mezalzelin bazel asais be'isr, because it was well known that the people who worked in the bathhouses would heat up water be'isr. Kemavur b'Shabbos Taf Mem Amud Aleph, like the Gemara says in Shabbos Taf Mem Amud Aleph. So over here, even according to the Mechaber, who rules in a more lenient way, and he says that you're allowed to bathe on Yom Tov, even your whole body, in water that was heated up on Erev Yom Tov, but not in the merchatz, not in the bathhouse. Because in the bathhouse, the Gzeres HaBalonin is in full effect, and we forbid bathing in hot water in the bathhouse. Now comes the Ramah. The Ramah says, Hagah v'yesh oisrim b'chol inyan. However, there are those that forbade washing your entire body in hot water, b'chol inyan, in any way at all, even if you're doing it outside of the merchatz with water that was heated up on Erev Yom Tov. Nevertheless, this is aser, the chen noihagin, and that is our custom, says the Ramah. So now let's take a look in Mishnah Berurah, Ois Katan Yudches. The Yesh Oisrim B'chol Inyan. There are those that forbid, and he brings this down to Ramah from the Torah and the Rush. There are those that forbid rechitzas kol gufay, washing your entire body with hot water that was heated up on Erev Yom Tov, even outside the Beis HaMerchatz. Why, says the Mishnah Berurah? Tisvir lahu, because these opinions hold the ein chilek bein Shabbos Yom Tov. There is no halachic gedika difference between Yom Tov and Shabbos when it comes to bathing in hot water. Va'asru rechitza b'Yom Tov k'may b'Shabbos. And the same way bathing in hot water is asur on Shabbos, it's also asur on Yom Tov. Now the Chavetz Chaim puts in here in the brackets a very important caveat: the dafka kol gufay ke'echad. That's only true when you're washing your entire body at one time. You're taking a nice bath. But to wash your body one limb at a time on Yom Tov with water that was heated up on Erev Yom Tov, and you're doing it outside of the merchatz, that the Mishnah Berurah says that would be mutter. Pashtus, the reason why Aver is mutter, especially if you're doing it with water that was heated up on Erev Yom Tov, is there's really no room for Gzeira. Because what's the Gzeira going to be? You're going to be geyser that you can't heat up water. You can't use water that you heated up on Erev Yom Tov for Rechitzas Kol Gufay Aver. Or you might come to heat up water on Yom Tov to wash Kol Gufay Aver. But it's not so simple that washing your entire body Aver on Yom Tov in water that was heated up on Erev Yom Tov, should be asur. So there's no room for Gzeira. Continues the Chavetz Chaim, and the Chavetz Chaim says that according to the more stringent opinion, according to this Ramah, that washing in hot water is always asur, rechitzas kol gufay is always asur on Yom Tov, that would apply even lehishtatef ba'is chamin. Even to just rinse and not wash would also be asur according to this opinion. Yeah. Continues the Mishnah Berurah. Miu, however, le'inyan tinite, when it comes to washing a baby, Gamali did too, even according to this Ramah, even according to this stringent opinion, Makalinan b'Yom Tov yoser mi b'Shabbos, we treat it in a more kuladik fashion than we do Shabbos. And you're allowed to wash the baby even in water that was heated up on Yom Tov. You're not allowed to heat the water up on Yom Tov, l'chatchila for the baby, but if you had water that was heated up, you're allowed to wash the baby like we saw previously. And certainly you would be allowed to use water that was heated up on Erev Yom Tov. However, if you're dealing with a baby that you're not accustomed to washing every day, washing his entire body in hot water even during a weekday, in such a case, even if you're dealing with water that was heated up on Erev Yom Tov, there's room to rule stringently. But if there's a big tzarech, you could be mekel. While most poskim seem to paskin like the mechaber, but still our custom is to forbid the washing on Yom Tov, even rechitzas kol gufa, even with water that was heated up on Erev Yom Tov, ve'ein l'shanos haminig, and we should not change this minig. V'chein noyagin is cutting yud test, and says the Chavetz Chaim Elinian Isha Shechal Tfilasa b'Yom Tov. If you have a woman whose leil tefillah, the night that she has to go to the mikveh, falls out on Yom Tov, Hiskimu kama achreinim, many achreinim agree, shetzarech li zaher, that you should take care, shalayiyah b'mikveh rak foishrin, that the water in the mikveh should be lukewarm water. It shouldn't be hot water. Because if it's hot water, then you're not allowed to bathe in that water. That would be rechitzas kol gufay in mayim, even if it's water that was heated up on Erev Yom Tov. The chozem hu chamu amayim Erev Yom Tov. Avo b'Yom Tov, if the water would be heated up on Yom Tov, also lahachem al yidei Yisrael. You're not allowed to heat that water up through a yid. V'yidei akom yesh lahakel, but through the agency of a non-Jew, you could be makel. The chozem lahachem belel Yom Tov sheni. That's talking about if you're heating up the water on the second night of Yom Tov. Avalahachem b'Yom Tov rishon, to heat up water on the first day of Yom Tov. Letzarech leil sheni, for a woman who has to use the mikvah on the night of Yilel Sheni. Ein lahakel klal, over there you can't be makel. Yisrael yikach ma'amayim lishtais b'yam kafa l'diach kelav. unless the water is being heated up for a different permissible purpose. That's a tzorich of the first day of Yom Tov. Then you're allowed to be moisef water. But like we said earlier in this year, you can't add water once the pot is on the fire. Now we go to Siv Gimel, says the Mechaber, it is permissible for a person to use a mikvah on Yom Tov in order to be tovel and remove his tumah. Why is he mentioning this to Mechaber? Explains the Chavetz Chaim in Nice Kat Lechaf, Adam Mutter Litpel, Ritzayin Leimar. What the Mechaber wants to say is, Alpha Gav the Kli also lahat bilo yulatare b'tomasim Yom Tov mimnei shenirike misakin akli al yedei. Even though if you had a keli that was tamei, or like we spoke about earlier, to tovel a brand new keli on Yom Tov, we said could be problematic because it's nirek misakin kli. It looks like you're repairing a keli. It looks like makah b'patish before you weren't allowed to use the keli, and now you are. So by a keli, it could be problematic to tovel it in the mikveh. Adam Shani, a person is different. Why don't we say that it looks like you're being misakin the person before the person was tummy and now he's not? Explains the Mishnah Berurah, because when you see somebody dunk in a mikveh, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to fix himself to remove his tumah. Maybe he's taking a swim to cool off. He brings this down from the Gemara Yudzayin Amud Beis. V'ayin la'el simen shin chavav sif ches and l'chashavas b'Mishnah Berurah sif chavdalad. Okay, a little bit of a short share today. This is where we're going to stop. We'll pick up tomorrow with Siv Dalet. The schus of Libet HaTorah should stand Gans Klal Yisrael in good stead. The Rosh Hashanah should send Yeshuas and Refuas and Parnasa to all those in need. Everyone should have in mind the Chayla Rafal Shibin Yehuda Leib Ben Perel Chaya, whose needs Rachamei Shamayim, should have a refuah shalema. Be well.